So what was done with this restore? Initially, I got it. It was smoking really bad. And I thought that was a carburetor related item. I thought it'd be easy to fix. Turned out it wasn't. So it turned out actually to be a valve issue. So as far as everything that's been replaced on this mower, granted, I'm going to keep it. So there was some more probably money put into it than what you would do if you're just going to restore it and sell it. But the carb, coil, wires, battery, those were replaced. The battery was shot. It was not really starting up as well as it could electrically. So I replaced the battery. As far as the valves go, and you guys saw in the previous videos, I was trying to figure out the compression, and I think this actually has a decompression or like a anti-compression kind of setup, if I remember right from the forums. So initially I got 120 on my very first compression test on this side, and then on the other side I got really low rating. So I kept using compression check after I would make changes. So I put new valve seals in. I resurfaced the valves, cleaned them up, made sure the tolerances were good, which they weren't initially. They were a little closed up, so there was no room on the intake side, and there was 8,000s on the exhaust, and the exhaust has to be 11 to 15 or around there. So did all that with the original valves, didn't really see much. Cleaned up the seats, lapped them in. I did that twice. After the second time, I noticed compression came up a little bit, so I was like, you know what, it might be the valve. So I took the valve out, I put it on a flat surface, and it would rock. So it told me that the valve was shot. So I just bought some new valves, got them on eBay for like $15 each. So I just replaced all the valve springs, since it's, you know, 40-year-old piece of equipment. Replaced the valve springs. I don't want to go back in there if I don't have to. So I was in there, I did as much as I could. So replaced that and checked the compression, and the compression was even on both sides. So even though it was only about 80 or 85, it was the same on both sides, which is what we're looking for. You want to have pretty equal, within 5% difference between each side. So if the compression, if there is a decompression or like a anti-compression valve or whatever in there, at least they're even, so that's positive. So I went with that, and I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to use it. I redid the heads. So I took the heads off, cleaned them up, resurfaced them on a flat surface, and put those in. Spark plugs, spark plug wires. There was a fuse missing, air cleaner. I put LED little lights in the tail lights. The breather tube was so old, it was I say fragile. It was breaking. So I went ahead and replaced that because it wasn't rubbery anymore at the bottom. It was just ready to break. So I replaced the breather tube and did all the fuel lines, because I didn't like the fuel lines they had on here. Put oil in it, hytran, filter greased, fuel bushing and stop. It was leaking at the bottom of the fuel tank, so I did that. And then battery, and redid the paint on most everything. So I took everything apart, checked everything that I could, repainted it, primed it, painted it, and here's where we are at the moment physically. For the mower deck, the mule drive here needed pulleys. One was seized up on it, so I just bought 2 new pulleys for that. And the deck itself just needed blades, and it needed cleaned up. So on the underside, I cleaned it all up, sprayed it down with some rustoleum rusty primer paint, and then hit it with a nice epoxy black on the bottom. And then I hit it with AMSOIL HD, heavy duty grease. I put it on the bottom of my chassis on my truck for keeping it, you know, weathered, so to speak, keeping the weather off of it. It's also easier to clean up. So there'll be links down below to everything that I just mentioned in terms of this rebuild. A lot of it you can get on eBay, some of it you can't. Like I said, some of it had to go to eBay. So there will be links though to things like the seals, head bolts, wires. I got wires that are USA made by somebody. They were meant for, they says for John Deere, but the lengths are the same. So I got brand new good wires on there for like 20 bucks, I think is what it was. So besides, you know, all of the regular stuff was replaced on it. Started it up for the first time. I thought I had everything good to go, and I tried to use the old carb, and it was shot. The bowl was all rusted on the inside, and it needed replaced. There was lots of rusty parts in there. So I went ahead, replaced it with the iSaveTractors.com carburetor, and that came out really well. It runs great right now. So I've mowed one time with it, and I'm about to do some dethatching and aerating and mowing again today for the fall time. But as far as everything goes, like being replaced, that's what was done. I also came into the engine, cleaned it up, and then repainted the muffler, repainted this muffler cover. The coil that I got was from iSave Tractors, and it's not the original coil. So I have this in here kind of pressure mounted with the original equipment, but I need to make a bracket for that eventually. That's in there, and that's not going to go anywhere. It was smoking initially, but that was because when you're going through valve train stuff, you're going to drop some oil on the exhaust. So that, blew off after a few minutes of running it. And I ran it pretty hard the first time I mowed. Made sure that I was going pretty quick just to test it out as much as I could. And it's operating really good right now. Don't really see any issues with it other than I can't find these two screws. But it's held on by other stuff, so it's not going anywhere. One thing I cannot figure out for the life of me is these corners. There's an adjustment that's on here, so you can actually see I need to redo a little bit of the paint right here, but I can't figure these adjustments out to get this a little bit lower, which it needs to be. So I still got to play around with that, but the hood goes down. It's not catching anymore. I need to, put a little bit of tape here and just touch this up. But other than that, if that's the biggest thing I got an issue with right now, pretty happy. As far as the rear goes, I did replace this and I put the gasket on. I didn't use any gasket sealant or tackifier, if you will, and it was very slowly leaking at the bottom, as if maybe I didn't get all the material off, or I took a little bit too much material off compared to the rest. So I took this back off, took the hytran out, went ahead and filtered that because you're never sure, if you're cleaning stuff up. Did it to the best of my ability, and then used a little bit of the Loctite stick. It's like a stick with sticky gasket stuff, and I probably used a little bit too much. I wish I found the spray one, but I don't think they make it anymore for tackifier. So I went ahead and put this back together, and we're good to go. So nice fuel, nice full of hytran. Up here, this originally did not have a spring back here, so I went ahead and found that part, and we got that going, and the new battery right here. And I went ahead and put new LED lights in. Banged out these bumps that are here. It's not perfect, but definitely looks a lot better than what it did. There were some gnarly dents in the fenders here. So I went ahead and did that. And all I did with the tires is I just cleaned them up. So sometimes you can just get away with cleaning stuff up. So, all in all, it doesn't run perfect. It runs, it does what I need it to do, and just actually dethatched the lawn. And I ran over it with the mower deck. The mower deck I'm going to repaint. I painted the top part and I did all the internals and everything and painted that, but as far as the rest of it, I'm going to do that in the winter time. But as far as the tractor goes, it does what it needs to do, and we'll see how long that it runs for. There isn't really anything else I need to do to it. The PTO is a little squeaky, so that might be the next thing that I do to it, but in the meantime, it runs, does what I need to do, like I said, and that's all that matters to me. So if you guys have any questions or anything, let me know. All of the stuff throughout this project, as far as links goes to things, if I can find them, I'll put that down below in the description. And go ahead and link up your stuff if you guys are doing some restores or whatever on your tractors and mowers down below. And let me know and let everybody know how your restore is going if you're doing it. And until next time, later.